not encouraging you to go and take drugs off the floor. It's a very bad idea. But I'm still in my 20s, although it's slowly slipping away from me. Everybody's like, oh my God, it's so good for you, blah, blah, blah. To be honest, I wonder if people are just they want to be a bit rebellious, and they're like, well, we can't smoke weed, so we'll do CBD instead because it's kind of the same thing, but not quite. And also, people don't want to smoke. Like, smoking isn't cool anymore. Vaping, maybe. And I will tell you my history with weed in Amsterdam. Imagine if we were giving people blood thinners and we didn't know what the dose was, and we were like, hell, here you go. It's potluck, really. Are you going to start bleeding from your eyes? Who knows? Oh, why did you have to come right in the middle of me podcasting? Oh, hi, we're finally back. Yay. Today I'm discussing CBD. Like, why has it become so popular? Honestly boomed in recent years, and I'm thinking like back to my history with cannabis, and I know it's not cannabis. We're going to be discussing all the differences today. We're going to be discussing positive benefits and the kind of concerning facts about CBD and why I would not take it personally. So, with that, I'm Dawn. I'm a doctor and I work in Bristol. And I also obviously have a podcast. It's called Backseat Positivity. You're listening to it right now, where we discuss all things self-care, etc. So, let's get into it. Why has CBD become so popular? I personally think we have lots of trends, don't we? And as soon as things like start, getting into a trend, everybody starts doing it. I mean, that is what a trend is, duh. And I kind of think everyone's wanted to smoke weed because it makes them feel good and it makes them relaxed, and everybody's like, oh my God, it's so good for you, blah, blah, blah. And then a lot of places weed is illegal, which is, I don't know if I have any personal issues with that. I don't really know what to be quite honest. I'm like, because I don't smoke it. I was like, I don't really smoke it. No, I don't smoke it at all. And to be honest, I'm so sensitive to any drugs that I'm just I'm staying away from it. So, and I will tell you my history with weed in Amsterdam. I think I might have talked about it before on the podcast, but I'll cover it real quick. It kind of fits. To be honest, I wonder if people are just they want to be a bit rebellious, and they're like, well, we can't smoke weed, so we'll do CBD instead because it's kind of the same thing, but not quite. And also, people don't want to smoke. Like, smoking isn't cool anymore. Vaping, maybe. But smoking cigarettes and also weed has such a distinctive smell. Like, you can't really get away with smoking it in public or carrying it around without people being like, you've got weed on you, because it's so obvious. When people come into hospital, you can literally smell it on them. Like, they walk past and you're like, okay, you've got weed on you. So I think people were smoking weed and then noticing a good effect. So thinking oh, well, how do we get the good effects of weed without being illegal and without smoking it and damaging our lungs and without being, did I say illegal already? I think I did. And people obviously realised that there's two compounds, well, not people, scientists realised that there was two compounds in weed, CBD, which is don't make me say it, cannabidiol, something like that. I'm just going to call it CBD because I cannot be asked to try and pronounce that, and THC, which is again a very long name, which I don't really need to tell you. Everybody just knows it as CBD and THC. Now, the thing with CBD is it theoretically doesn't have any THC in it because it's, we're supposed to have separated them from, whereas if you smoke weed, you're getting both. And who knows what quantity as well, right? Because it's not as though it's, manufactured. It's just someone's grown it somewhere and then you receive the end product. And like most drugs, except the ones that are prescribed, you have no idea what's in them. Imagine if we were taking, we were giving people blood thinners and we didn't know what the dose was, and we were like, hell, here you go. It's potluck, really. Are you going to start bleeding from your eyes? Who knows? So we wouldn't do that. But with other things, it's other drugs, it's kind of acceptable somehow. I don't know. You just imagine taking any other drug, paracetamol. It's oh, am I going to go into liver failure because I've taken 8 grams of paracetamol? Who knows? Am I going to turn into a Simpson? Who knows? So that's kind of what we're dealing with. And a lot of these things, especially with weed in particular, and I know I keep talking about weed and people are going to be like, oh, but CBD and weed are not the same thing. Well, they come from the same thing. So, but, do we really know how much, if you're smoking weed, do you really know how much CBD and THC are in it? No, you literally don't, even if you've manufactured it yourself. There's probably ways to test it, but who's doing that? I don't know. So I think when something then catches on to a trend, and a lot of people have anxiety, a lot. I would say, I don't know, everyone has anxiety at some point in their life. So surely 100% population have anxiety of some form. But have diagnosed anxiety? Well, I would say I know lots of people who don't have a formal diagnosis of anxiety. But if I were their doctor, they would have a diagnosis of anxiety. It might not be on their medical records, but they for sure have it. So there we go. It's obviously underdiagnosed, but that's because I think people just accept that they're going to be in an anxious state nowadays. And I see a lot of anxious people coming to hospital to, get their medical problems checked out. And so I see it a lot. And, they might not have anxiety on their notes, but yeah, I think I probably do. As in, I've got it on my notes. I haven't actually looked at my notes, so who knows. But I have anxiety, so best be on there. So what's my history with weed? Oh, also, sorry, I forgot to mention, I don't really know about this, but I'm sure there's going to be some kind of placebo effect. With any drug at all, any drug, placebo is very effective. Just the fact that you're taking something makes you feel either the benefits or the negative effects of it. Doesn't matter whether you're even taking the drug. Sometimes placebo is just effective or very close behind. So the fact that people think that they're taking CBD, which is known for its anti-anxiolytic properties, either, anti-anxiety, it's quite hard to say, they therefore automatically, as a part of the placebo or part of the drug as well, will just feel more relaxed anyway. So I do think there is some placebo effect. Now, my history with weed, I can't remember which episode I talked about this on, but it was an episode, Christ, what one was it on? Basically, in Amsterdam, everybody knows this surely, Amsterdam only weed is legal. And as a result, it's kind of everywhere. Everyone's smoking it and taking it in brownie form, hash brownies, or there's shops everywhere that you can get it. Now, as a result, I found some on the floor. Now, I'm not encouraging, I can't think of the word, I'm not encouraging you to go and take drugs off the floor. It's a very bad idea. But I'm still in my 20s, although it's slowly slipping away from me. I was, early 20s, 24 or something. I found some on the floor, and weirdly, it looked like, so they dropped their smoking bag, it looked like. So I picked it up, and I was like, wow, I've got all this stuff. So I tried it, and it made me super paranoid and super anxious. And I don't know why, but some people were saying some weeds, they make you really anxious and some make you really relaxed. And I was like, I do not feel relaxed. I feel so on edge. I felt like everyone was gonna attack me. I was like, I don't know what it was. So my history with weed is, I didn't really do any after that because I was like, I just hate feeling kind of heightened emotions that are negative, obviously. And you can't really reverse it, because you've done the weed, unless you take some more weed that makes you relaxed. So who knows? But anyway, I took some of that weed. I didn't actually get any from any of the from the weed stores, whatever they're called. I don't know what they're called. The weed stores. The shops that sell the weed and the weed cafes. They've got a name, but I've forgotten. I didn't get any from there. Because that experience really put me off. I was like, am I going to be hospitalized because I become a paranoid, I was going to say schizophrenic, but you don't just become, well, yeah, you do actually. You can just get paranoid schizophrenia. Am I just going to become a paranoid schizophrenic? Because the thing is, a lot of people have a disposition to things like schizophrenia or mental health problems. And sometimes I have seen, instances where they've been fine and then they've done drugs, not necessarily weed, but other drugs. And then they've been like pushed over the edge and they've gone into full psychosis. And was that going to happen anyway? Maybe. But the fact that I saw one guy and he was 18 and he had to go into like a mental hospital because he had done drugs at like a festival, and then he was just completely psychotic. And he might have had the predisposition to it, because all of his friends did the same drugs. So it wasn't just him. And then that was it. I don't know what happened to him after that. It would have been kind of interesting to know, like, is he, that's life changing, because if it doesn't recover, then you're on antipsychotics, you're potentially in a mental institute or psychiatric hospital, whatever you want to call it, for, in and out or the rest of your life. What? Oh, it's my mum. Antipsychotics make you put on weight. So, yeah. Oh, why did she have to come right in the middle of me podcasting? Oh, she's like brought the dogs back. So... And also I'm on such a time limit because I start work in an hour. So I literally have to keep going. So it just doesn't seem like worth risking that. And obviously I see the worst of the worst. Obviously, I get that. And that obviously puts me off things. Now, what kinds of CBD products do people use? Now, most people use gummies or other edibles. Now, I looked on, it's called Supreme CBD. This is not like a sponsor or like, I'm not promoting it. I was just looking, and they're going to be like, why were you looking at it? Well, it's actually fine for me to look at these things, surely. Supreme, I tell you what, right? Supreme CBD, the gummies, they're just like normal pick-a-mix sweets. You can get bottles, peach rings. I can imagine a kid seeing this and not understanding what it is and then just eating them all. Like, you would eat the whole thing. And they've got like a mild rating, which is good. So they've got CBD strawberries, CBD bottles, CBD cherries, and they look like sweets that you get from pick-a-mix. Peach rings, gummy bears, and the biggest thing that stuck out to me was, firstly, they look all right. They look quite nice. They don't look as good as the OGs. But there's a few things that stuck out to me. Number one, they're super fucking expensive. If you want to buy the biggest thing, you will spend... Oh, these ones are strong. You'll spend 50 quid. And imagine that only lasts you, like, 2 weeks or something. Or imagine that only lasts you a month. You're spending 50 quid a month on gummies, and yeah, maybe that's fine for you, but imagine then you're on all the other gummies as well. I just think that's probably one of the most expensive ways to take it, right? So I think the second most common is then capsules. It's a bit boring, isn't it? But there we go. Oils is next, lotions, and then it gets like topical, vape, flower, other. I don't know what that is. Maybe that's just weed. But, I mean, it goes to show that, like, maybe people, if people are taking gummies, maybe people are taking it for the fun gummy aspect. The fact that they're in bright colours and they look really fun and they taste good. Like, maybe people are just taking it for fun purposes, as well as, would they be taking it if they had to just take it as an oil or a capsule? I mean, to be fair though, they are quite close behind, 58% and then 55%. I don't really know how they've worked this out, because they must have one person must use more than one of these methods, because 58 plus 55 is already over 100%, so it doesn't really make any sense. Now, obviously, CBD oils are also on here. Oh my lordy. What? They're so expensive. What the fuck? $74.99 for... And you get 2 for that, but that's a lot. Full spectrum CBD. Crikey. You can get one here for... $24.99. Oh my god, you can get one here for £400. What? £400 for 100 millilitres of CBD. Something's got to have gone right in your life for you to be purchasing that. I was going to say gone wrong, but the other concerning fact is that you can buy this on Klarna, which is buy now, pay in 30 days, or pay in installments. And people don't stratify risk when they... That's such a fucking old person sentence to say. They don't stratify risk when they when you can split payments up. And I'm guilty of this as well. So you might think, well, I can spend... It's 20% off. It was £500, now it's £400. I'll buy the 24,000 milligram one. What? Experienced users providing a strong dose of CBD in a large bottle. That's crazy. And then it says you earn $12.99 cash reward if you buy it now with one click. Well, that's kind of overwhelming, isn't it? Okay, they've got excellent on Trustpilot. They're obviously doing pretty well. They've got lots of reviews. Oh, they've got a bad one there. They just said nice taste but didn't get any effect from the gummies. Okay, now let's talk about the positive effects. Now, personally, so the thing is, I'm a bit shy of money at the moment, and I wanted to try some CBD gummies before I did this. The issue is, like I just said, I don't have any money. So I was like, Tom has tried them. So I did some research and I asked him what he thought. He did find some calming benefits. He used them for 3 months in total. And the reason why he stopped was because it costs £30 a month just for CBD gummies. And it's like, what else, if you haven't got a job or you're living on a low income, spending £30 a month is a lot. So I think for him, the money aspect outweighed the benefits of it. He did say he was getting some anti-anxiolytic properties for a while, and then he just felt like it wore off. I don't know though, he's not the most reliable person in terms of like reading effects of things, because he was then getting reflux and insomnia, and he thought that was due to his ashwagandha, and I was like, I don't know about that, but so I have to take his word with a pinch of salt. So whether it did actually wear off, do you have to keep escalating how much you take? I think you do, because here it says for experienced users, right? So you then have to keep escalating how much you're taking to feel the same benefit. So it's kind of like, it's going to end up costing you a fortune in the long run. Now, the positive benefits are, obviously, you get the positive aspects of smoking weed, but without the smoking, without the illegalness, and and without the harmful benefits of smoking it. You can literally just take some, and you could just be eating sweets for as far as anybody else knows. The other things they're used for is anxiety and depression. You can use it for that. Personally, I just rather stick to the prescribed drugs. Pain and inflammation reduction, mainly in arthritis. That is because everybody's like, oh, you don't want to have opioids, they can cause constipation. I am kind of thinking, are they just the new opioids? Like, are we going to figure out in some years that they're like actually really bad for you because they cause loads of constipation and they're addictive and stuff like that? Because that's kind of how opioids went, and then we start abusing it because us humans, we just can't control ourselves. We're like, we need to rid ourselves of any feeling of anxiety or, distress by drugging ourselves with things that make us feel better. That's kind of how it feels. So it's like, right, well, if this doesn't work, we'll move on to the next thing. And, there's a lot of frowned uponness of doing, obviously, heroin, but like things like opioids, like codeine or Vicodin, I think it's called in America, or other things like that, and things like benzodiazepines. There's a lot of stigma against doing that now because it's kind of thought of as a thing that you do if you're a bit of a junkie, whereas CBD is like, yeah, I'm doing CBD and I'm cool. They've got a fucking, on the Supreme CBD website, they've got an Olympian as their ambassador, and then they've got, who the fuck is this? John Hartson. I don't know, something. He was an athlete. And Dean Windass, another athlete, professional former footballer. So it's like, these are all kind of people that you might aspire to be. And it's like, why are we not treating our anxiety and depression at the root of the problem. And you could say, well, Dawn, you're on antidepressants. Yeah, I get that. But am I trying to come off them? Yes. And am I trying to better my mental health? Yes. And maybe, I don't know, will it ever be right? Will my mental health ever be fully right? Or is it just like ingrained in my DNA that I will have anxiety and depression forever? So, I get that if other people were thinking that. Now, there is also some positive effects saying, well, in weed, we don't know how much CBD we're having. And I will get onto that in a minute because it's kind of arguable as to whether that's the case for CBD or not. And it's more of a controlled amount. We know the milligrams, it's 16 milligrams, and you can have okay, that's enough for me, 16 milligrams or 5 milligrams or whatever. I'm not saying that is the dose you should be having. Those are the doses I've heard of. It has been shown in rats, only in rats, to improve artery function and blood pressure reduction. So it's a questionable one. We will need to know more. I think the point is that it's very new. We've only just started using it within the last couple of years, and any new treatment, it's not a treatment because it's not actually allowed to be called a drug because it's not approved by the FDA, the Food and Drugs, I've forgotten what the A stands for, Association, probably. Now, there is new licensing in the UK for it to be used in severe forms of epilepsy, ones that are not completely amenable to traditional anti-epileptic medications. And there's another one, which is muscle stiffness and spasms in multiple sclerosis, MS. Now, that is MS is an incurable degenerative disorder where it will probably kill you. Sorry, that was really quite dramatic, wasn't it? But in the severe forms, of progressive MS or, progressive MS, then that's the case. Some people have severe forms, some people have very mild forms. And if it can help people that are going through that kind of situation, well, I think why not? We give people syringe drivers when they're dying of a horrible, painful cancer, and we give them opioids as much as they need or want, pretty much, because, well, they're dying anyway. And the one, if you've got MS and you're lying in bed and you're in a lot of pain, then, it kind of makes sense to try and relieve that. And does it really matter that much if about the negative effects so much? I mean, they've obviously studied it and decided that the positives outweigh the negatives. So let's move on to the negatives. As discussed earlier, someone has said they're likely mostly placebo because we don't know actually how much is in the CBD, or anyway, unless it's a reputable source, you need to have seen the information from a third-party lab, so not associated with them. But I mean, do I trust people to, especially big companies trying to market their products? I don't think I do. I'm sorry, but they could be paying off those people in the lab. I know I'm being really cynical, but you have to kind of question these things, especially after you've watched enough fraudulent documentaries on Netflix and murder documentaries, and you realise how people will just pay off people if they've got enough money, and also tamper with results. So anyway, let's assume for now that their lab reports are correct if they've got them. Now, you should be taking CBD with a dose on. You don't just want to be going for it, oh, who knows what I'm going to get. What are the negative side effects of that? Well, probably not significant, you might just be really sleepy. I don't think you can necessarily, just from taking one dose, necessarily overdose on it. But yeah, that is potentially, you can overdose on anything. So I don't want people to think, well, I can't overdose on it, so I'll just take whatever. No, you can overdose on anything, pretty much. Water, you can overdose on it. Oxygen, you can overdose on it in severe, amounts, not just from breathing. You have to have high flow oxygen. So it is mostly placebo, and that is because the biggest difference between CBD used in clinical trials and sold in the stores is dose. Now, research has been shown that store-bought CBD And unfortunately, I can't give you any reputable sources because it's not something that I've like looked at, and I also don't necessarily want to condone it. But they've done studies on it and found that actually it doesn't really contain much CBD at all, especially compared to clinical trials, which the dose is significantly higher. And go away. And often they've contained THC, which is addictive, or other illegal drugs. Oh dear. Who knows what that means, or even alcohol instead of CBD. So, you really need to know what you're buying. And I think just if you're looking at a brand, you need to look at the reviews, you need to look at the back end of their website, or probably their website. Don't just like randomly go into a store and just buy any brand, get it from a reputable one. So in clinical trials, the CBD is so much more purified, and it's given regularly, and it's given under medical supervision. And not to say we're the best thing ever, doctors, but, at least I don't really know how that matters so much, but I guess the biggest thing is that it needs to be under medical supervision, is because they can interact quite a lot with prescribed medications, in particular certain antidepressants, blood thinners, and organ transplant anti-rejection medications. And that's a fucking big one. You don't want your organ to be rejected. Like, that is a really big one. Or maybe even, I don't know this one. No, actually, I won't just say it because it might not be true. But you need to chat to your doctor about it. And that's kind of the point about it under medical supervision, is it makes it a lot safer. And I mean, they are obviously giving CBD at much higher doses, so you need to be more careful. But that's the kind of therapeutic dose, rather than just like, oh, there's a little bit here and there. Now, look, if you're sensitive to medications like I am, then probably any dose is therapeutic. But I mean, I got this from the British Heart Foundation. I'll put the link in the description, so you can go and have a look. I've got a few links that I'll put in the description that I've got all of this information from. And I've put in like layman's terms, and then I've put some scientific papers, because I kind of read a bit of both. And in particular, I just want you to be aware of some of the references, some of the one particular website, the Forbes one, actually is trying to sell you CBD. So you need to be aware of that and not be like, oh, well, they're telling me it's really great and there's like almost no negatives. They are literally trying to sell you CBD. So they're not going to tell you the negatives. They're just going to tell you the positives, because that is how marketing works. And so I just want you to be aware, but so I have put it on there, but I want, be careful when you're reading an article that is firstly Forbes, like it's not particularly scientific, but they have got references at the bottom, which might be worth checking out rather than the actual article. So I thought, interestingly, I think I've already said this maybe, but CBD products in shops are actually marketed as supplements rather than medicines, and that means that they've not gone through the FDA process of being approved by the FDA. And that's kind of important because, it's a supplement. It's not a medicine. It's not a food. It's not something you can reliably go, well, the FDA have approved it, which means that, it must be fine and it must be checked and it must have been rigorously tested, right? Because getting through FDA approval is really fucking hard. I've watched some documentaries on it. I watch a lot of documentaries. I'm kind of sad. And the documentaries basically say getting through FDA is very difficult because they have to test your product, and they look at the labels and they look at your lab and stuff like that. And it's very, very time consuming and costs a lot of money. So just bear in mind that they haven't gone through that process. Now, I have said, could it be the new opioid? However, there isn't currently any evidence of withdrawal symptoms or any negative side effects from stopping it. But that's not to say that, you start to get used to it and you need more to feel the same benefit. And also you start to feel more anxious when you don't have it, or you notice the anxiety and you're like, oh, this makes me really uncomfortable. So, it's not addictive, because addiction is like your body needs it. But mentally, could it be addictive? Potentially. You know, the things like alcohol, if you stop that, if you're addicted to it, not only will you get the psychological, like, I need it, but you'll also get the physical, and you know, your body literally needs it, otherwise it'll start withdrawing and having seizures, and it's really dangerous. So there's, you know, it's a difference in addiction, and I think addictive properties, and I think that's, you know, why people are thinking it's a lot better, because it's not necessarily addictive. So let's do a quick fire FAQ, because I went onto Google and these are the top most asked questions. Number 1, does it make you high? I'm literally going to go bam, bam, bam. No, because it's different to THC. However, it might include THC in the product you're buying, and you don't know because it's not gone through FDA. Remember that. And THC is the psychoactive substance that makes you like, ooh. What's the quickest method of ingestion? Sublingual. That means underneath your tongue, let it sit there, and they have said that with the gummies actually, to put it under your tongue and it will absorb the CBD more effectively, because if it goes into the stomach, yes, it gets absorbed, but it goes through your liver first, and that then breaks some of it down. If it goes sublingually, it goes straight into your bloodstream, and that is why people take drugs like cocaine, etc., either in their gums or their nose, because it absorbs straight into the system. Shouldn't be telling you how to take drugs, really, should I? Is it addictive? No, we've already discussed this, but choose reputable sources, because otherwise they could contain THC, which is addictive. And I do think, you know, they do want to produce products which are addictive, because that's how you get people kind of hooked on them, right? You know, there was that whole issue with Juul. That's the documentary I watched, and they talked about, you know, addictiveness, teenagers and stuff like that. So a lot of products do want to make them addictive. A lot of companies, want to make their products addictive. And that's something to be aware of. Anyway, do I write off CBD? Just in summary, do I write it off? No. Would I use it? Maybe, actually. I wouldn't say no. Like, I think the thing is, it's so expensive. I'm not going to spend £30 a month. My anxiety is not that bad. And the only time I really get anxious is when I drink alcohol, and that's kind of easily avoided, so I could just stop drinking alcohol and then I wouldn't feel anxious the day after, you know, #beerfear. Oh my god, Dawn, stop hashtagging, please. Anyway, I better go. I can still hear my mum downstairs, and I've got to go to work. Ew. Anyway, bye guys. I upload every Monday and Thursdays, and we discuss all things self-care, positive mental health. Woo! And if you liked it, please give it a like. If you want to subscribe, please do that. If you want to hear more from me, I also have a YouTube channel at Dawn Barlow, and my podcast is on there too. And also just go check out my other videos of me doing fun things in my life if you care. Anyway, see you soon. Speak to you soon. Bye. Oh, and you get a kiss at the end of it. That's nice. Yes.